What is going on, guys? It is Wrestlelamia here, back with another news video. It's the go home episode of Smackdown before Backlash, as well as the finals for the Intercontinental Championship, so let's hope the show lives up to the hype. Join us now as Wrestlelamia analyzes the 12th June edition of Friday Night Smackdown, as well as the wildest news stories and rumors you need to know, including more fallout from Paul Heyman's departure as Executive Director for Creative on Raw, Nia Jax's response to fan criticism, The Undertaker gets emotional watching an emotional scene, are we seeing the end of the brand split? A historic tournament cancelled and much more. Be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell for daily wrestling videos. But just before that, we'd like to give a massive shout out and thank you to our new channel members. Andrea Bryson, Isaiah Dawson, Stephen Wolf, Mario Kakowski, Philip Burden, Lamontra Feaster, Ricky Darby, Doug Kidd and Bonnie Tang. Thank you so much for your continued support. Now, as always, Wrestlelamia isn't going to recap the matches, but just look at the good, the bad, and the downright ugly. As always, we start off with the good. As number 1, a push for Nakamura and Cesaro. Could the WWE Universe see a push for the tag team of Shinsuke and Cesaro? In a potential display of foreshadowing, the SmackDown announcers suggested that the artist and the Swiss Superman could make a good team. Which is a no-brainer unless you happen to be WWE creative. While the team's win over the New Day is meaningless without a sustained push, it's always good to dream. Number 2, bedazzling the fans. The WWE's Performance Center shows have come a long way from the early days when the venue was one step up above a well-lit bingo hall. The WWE has tightened up their game, shifting the camera shots to hide the fact that the show takes place in a small venue, improving things by adding an audience, and now adding some impressive light shows. The entrance lights for Shinsuke and Cesaro added a lot, and while aesthetics may seem minor, anything that distracts from the show being held at the Performance Center isn't a bad thing. It's a damn good thing. Number 3, everything expected and more. When AJ Styles and Daniel Bryan locked up, it's highly unlikely fans will see anything less than a 4-star match. Last night's battle for the Intercontinental Championship was everything fans expected and more, with AJ and Bryan keeping fans guessing as to what move would end the match. Whether it was well-executed near falls or last-second escapes from submission moves, both superstars wrestled their hearts out. Incredibly, the WWE gave both stars plenty of time to showcase their talent. If only the WWE would do this on pay-per-view when two technicians tussle, but even better, the match had a clean finish that saw Styles counter a running knee into a Styles clash, followed by a phenomenal forearm. A fantastic 5-star classic to be sure. Number 4, rising to the occasion. The expectations for last night's Styles vs Bryan clash was high, and while both men delivered, they also matched in the announce booth by excellent commentary from Michael Cole and Corey Graves. Granted, it's easier to call a good match than a bad match, but Cole and Graves were at the top of their game during this match, adding to the event. Neither man is Jim Ross, but as Michael Cole and Corey Graves, they've shown that they can be an above-average team. Number 5, some backstage heat. Normally, backstage heat involves a superstar having beef with another, or sometimes a superstar getting into it with management. Thankfully, last night's backstage heat featured a short but exciting brawl between Sheamus and Jeff Hardy, reminding the fans that these two just can't stand each other, and based on what happened last night, it's no surprise. Number 6, a good promo out of nowhere. Braun Strowman's backstage promo was unexpected but well done, showing that the Universal Champion hasn't lost the charisma that fans have felt he's had for years, yet rarely had an opportunity to show. While it's safe to say the monster among men will walk out of Backlash with the Universal Championship, the WWE should consider keeping the belt on him and giving him a chance to get over. Number 6, the New Day take the knee. Now, just before their match, Kofi Kingston and Big E took a knee before their match against Shinsuke Nakamura and Cesaro. It wasn't exactly mentioned on commentary why, but it was obviously a clear showing of solidarity towards the Black Lives Matter movement. And finally, everything comes together. Once again, SmackDown wove its various interview storylines and matches into one seamless show, which suggests the writing team is working hard to produce a good show from start to finish, other than one segment that we'll mention in the bad. But best of all, every part of the show, small or large, seemed to advance storylines and build wrestlers up. Even last week's seemingly inconsequential segment with Otis stealing Corbin's crown came into play last night. But that was the good. What about the bad? Yes, we were in two minds of this, but Vince McMahon's toilet humor. Vince McMahon loves his potty humor, and last night's segment between Jeff Hardy and Sheamus was a reminder that Mr. McMahon still likes to book shows that feature infantile humor, including segments that focus on bodily fluids. As fans noted, this segment was used by the WWE back in 2006 with Shawn Michaels and Vince McMahon. It's a golden oldie, no pun intended. Regrettably, it was a bad way to start what turned out to be an otherwise fantastic show. No downright ugly on the go-home episode of Smackdown, thankfully, as the show provided everything fans would want to pique their interest in Sunday's event. It's also continued the question of what's going on with Mandy Rose. There's obviously more to her relationship with Otis than that of two unlikely lovers. It's only a matter of time before the alluring Rose is revealed as someone with her own agenda, and that Otis will be revealed as her pawn. That was the good, the bad, and the downright ugly of Smackdown. Let's move on to the news. As our first story looks at Heyman hustled out the door, now what's next for Raw? Now, Paul Heyman's exit as executive director of Raw Creative has fans asking what's next for the Red brand. As discussed in our recent video, is Raw doomed? Things could get bleak for Raw. But now, Ringside News is reporting that Vince McMahon's frustrations will likely see wide sweeping ramifications. It could end up hurting younger superstars. Pulling the trigger on Edge vs Randy Orton prior to SummerSlam isn't the only thing McMahon is doing to get instant results. It was told to us that Paul Heyman was building superstars of tomorrow, but Vince McMahon wanted the star power today. The new situation looks like younger superstars are not going to be pushed up the card, or even worse, fed to the established stars. Don't be surprised to see sweeping changes from top to bottom, whether it's WWE Champion Drew McIntyre, US Champion Apollo Crews, or any of Heyman's pet projects like Humberto Carrillo, Austin Theory, and many others. Next up, The Undertaker got emotional over Vince. Now, if you've been watching the Last Ride documentary series that's been airing on the WWE Network, it's given us a rare insight of what the dead man has done throughout his journey in the WWE, closing out what seems to be his final days as a full-time wrestler, and some of these moments really get emotional within the documentary. At one point, Vince McMahon was asked what The Undertaker meant to him personally. Vince was so struck with emotion that he couldn't even answer it. When The Undertaker saw this, he reacted emotionally as well. With Vince, our relationship has far exceeded the boss-employee relationship. I still work for him, but he's a guy who is on the short list of those I consider dear friends. It was a little emotional for me to watch him and not be able to put into words our relationship because he's always had an answer for everything. To see him not able to answer that question, it was emotional for me to watch that. I'm not an overly emotional person, but it's nice to know people have such strong feelings for you when you know how you feel about them. It was a strong moment seeing Vince like that for sure. Now the documentary could have one other purpose. The final episode has not even been filmed yet, and we fear that it may reveal something devastating. Now this is just speculation, but we feel that The Undertaker may announce his official retirement in the final episode. If that does happen, I'm gonna have to join Vince and The Undertaker in that emotional corner. Next up is the brand split coming to an end. The desperate times call for desperate measures, and with Vince McMahon, things can change in a heartbeat. With Mr. McMahon obviously feeling changes need to be made, hence the departure of Paul Heyman from Raw Creative, could fans see the end of the brand split? Ringside News is reporting that they were told by a source in the company that at the moment the rosters are separate. I don't think they will change, but you never know in this environment, is what Dave Meltzer had to say in the latest Wrestling Observer. It could also lead to a roster consolidation, which is usually what happens in WWE when ratings drop, with the idea of putting the top guys on both rosters on both shows increases the star power. It's a stopgap measure that historically has worked, but it also gives less time for talent on the rise. And there lies the problem. One of the WWE's biggest problems is its inability to elevate talented stars to the upper card and main event, instead relying on a few stars and bringing in veterans such as Goldberg for special appearances. There's nothing wrong with the WWE's current core of main eventers, but what happens when someone gets injured or their act grows stale? As the Attitude Era proved, you can never have too many main eventers, and the more you have, the more they can build up the undercard. In the WWE's case, it's arguable it's not so much a case of the promotion being unable to build new stars, but an unwillingness to take that time to do so. Vince can be a very impatient man. Next up, a historic women's event has been cancelled. No, we're not talking about the Mae Young Classic, which we noted that won't be taking place this year, but another event that could have been big for WWE's female superstars. During an episode of the Wrestling Observer Live, Bryan Alvarez confirmed that a Queen of the Ring tournament is now off. Now, had there not been a global pandemic, I believe what you would have seen this summer is a Queen of the Ring tournament. This certainly would have been interesting and another good way to promote the WWE's female superstars, perhaps even giving an undercard star the chance to rise up the ranks, or again putting the crown on Charlotte Flair. But if Charlotte Flair wasn't able to compete, who do you think should have become the first Queen of the Ring? And finally, Nia Jax responds to fan criticism. Now, Nia Jax has come under fire for what some fans see as a sloppy and dangerous approach to wrestling, injuring far too many superstars. Jax, who is scheduled to face Asuka for the Raw Women's Championship at Backlash, spoke to TalkSport's Alex McCarthy about the fans' criticism and whether it affects her. I feel like every person or character who would say, "Oh, whatever they say doesn't bother me," are kinda lying, because I'm working for the approval of an audience. Whether it be hating or loving, I want their reaction. So when you're on Twitter and you see it constantly, it can definitely get to you a little bit. It's like, wow, all I'm seeing is negativity. But when I step back and I actually immerse myself into the WWE universe, like when I get to see the crowd and fans, I know that's just a small percentage on Twitter who have nothing better to do than hate on somebody. Unfortunately, that's wrestling fans. We're all very hypercritical. We don't want to see superstars get injured. The thing is, if her work continues to get sloppy, she should expect to see more criticism. Fans aren't going to hold back. But there you have it, guys, our analysis of the 12th June Smackdown, as well as the wildest news stories and rumors you need to know. Did you guys watch last night's show? If so, what did you guys think of it? Let us know in the comments down below, subscribe if you haven't already, follow us on Instagram and Twitter, and I'll see you next time with some more wrestling content.